How do you answer the wine versus whiskey debate?
I did not join a company. I joined an industry which did not exist at that time. The wine has not failed. The marketing has failed.
Prosecco, I think.
Prosecco it
Right?
was.
We had a Prosecco and we paired it with a batata vada.
Batata vada,
Right.
chole bhature. Indage was incidentally the first company to introduce rosé wine.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I was there at that
I
time.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not necessarily that everybody has to make wine from grape.
Experience centers which are selling, wine by the glass, which do storytelling can help, or will add to the wine tourism scenario.
I'll put it this way, the one which you enjoy and you are not told to enjoy.
I like that.
And another thing, wine is like a girlfriend. To name one, I'll be offending so many others.
That's a good one. That's a nice way to put it. Welcome to Behind the Bottle. I'm Dushyant. This show talks about wines, spirits, winemakers, distilleries, wineries, and all the people who are behind the bottle. Today I have with me somebody who has created the wine market in India. Hans Raj sir has been a mentor, of course, and he's the one who's been driving the market right from the beginning. So I wanted to start from you, and let's start right from the beginning. How did you get into wines?
Thank you, Mr. Dushyant, for inviting me. Actually, I began my professional working career in banking, which is, you'll be also surprised that from banking to, and now we are talking about wine. I started in 75 into the banking career. And I was doing reasonably well. I was growing. I was getting very diverse experience into banking, various aspects of banking, management. And after 15, 16 years of working in the bank, I completed my post-graduation in management. That time, it made me thinking to explore something outside the structured field of management in banking. I wanted to do something different than be stayed in a very structured form of organization. And in 1994, I was introduced to the promoters of a company called Indage.
Correct.
It was a sick company, incipient sickness. It was sick right from the inception stage. And we got talking, and they told me very clearly that it's a sick company, and it's sick basically because huge capacity was created in anticipation of sales, which did not happen.
Okay.
So they were struggling. But I realized that the promoters were firm behind the project, that they were sure that they will make a success of it. The products were good. After a series of meetings, I felt convinced that the promoters are behind the project. They will not abandon the project.
Okay.
And that made me take a very bold decision of shifting from a very secure job, well-paying job, to something unknown. I took a decision to leave my banking career and join Indage in 1994.
Okay.
After that, it was history. But actually speaking, I did not join a company. I joined an industry which did not exist at that time.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So when did you join Indage?
I joined them in 1994.
Wow.
I joined them in the finance and administration department.
Okay.
Because that is where the immediate requirement was there.
Okay.
And I could set right all the finances and administration within maybe about 5 to 6 months' time. And that was the time when I was given additional responsibility to look into how to increase the sales to make it self-sufficient.
Okay.
And I changed the distribution. I started changing the distribution system. I recruited staff. The problem was getting the staff because there was no market. So there was no people who had experience into selling wine or creating a market for wine. So my first job was to find the right kind of people who were willing to take a risk and join me and get trained into wine. But fortunately, I was lucky enough to get very good people. I trained them into the sales skill, talking about the wine, and that is from where we started making history.
So, was wine even a category at that time? 94, was wine even known to the market?
Frankly speaking, in retrospect, now I can say no, there was no market at all. Therefore, I said I joined a company or I joined an industry which did not exist at that time. But I was convinced that we will be able to make it and make a success of it. And most ironically, you'll see that all the liquor shops were called wine shops, but there was no wine in that.
Correct.
So a few shops used to keep the wine, but that too against order. Whenever a customer used to place an order, they will order against order and stock for sale.
But those were
The 5 stars had the wine list, but they were all imported at that time. There was very little knowledge about wine. They had the wine list just for the sake of it, but that's it. That was there.
So that is what I wanted to ask you. So at that time, possibly it was imported wines which were available. So what you joined was Indulge, who was creating the wines in India. Was it the first winery to start in India?
Actually, Indage was the second winery,
Okay.
but it was the first to start sparkling wine.
Okay.
Ironically, Indage did not have still wine at that time. They started off with sparkling wine because that is how the project was made. There was another winery called Grover based in Bangalore, which was the first company to make still wines. But later on, when Indage realized that sparkling wine has a limited scope in India, so they started adding still wines into it. So technically, Indage was the first company to make sparkling wine and second company to make still wines.
So I remember the name. Was it Marquis de Pompadour?
Marquis de Pompadour was our flagship brand for sparkling wine. And there were only 2 wines called Riviera at that time, white and red.
Oh, yeah.
Later on, we of course kept on adding a lot of brands and varietals and all that. But that's how the industry started developing.
So
Actually speaking, 1994 or later during the year, we were not selling the wine. We were creating a market.
correct. So we started talking about selling wine and creating the market. When was your first experience of actually appreciating wine?
That's a very good question. My first experience with wine was sometime in 78, 79, vaguely I remember, when I was setting up my home bar.
Okay.
So along with other beverages, I bought a bottle of wine. That was the only product available at that time in the market, so I bought it. When I tasted the wine, then I thought, okay, if this is wine, then I'm done with it, no more wine. But after a couple of years, at a social gathering, I had a chance to taste the imported wine. That is what hooked me onto the wine. That was the real wine. So actually my experience made me quit. Second experience made me curious to know more about the wine. That is how the transition happened.
So did you actually sit with a wine taster and tasted it, or you just...
No, it was a social gathering. We were drinking. I liked it. And I stayed with the wine. I did not move on to other beverages. I stayed with the wine. Okay. That is what I do even now also after 30, 40 years.
That's very interesting actually, to stay in wine for such a long time.
Yeah.
Now, coming back to the market part of it, right? You said that there was no market at all. So what was the real challenge in pushing the wines out into the market?
The biggest challenge was, I'll put it this way, to try and change the mindset of the people. The wine was there in everybody's mind, but it was not, they were not buying it, they were not drinking it. They knew about the wine, but they were not trying it. Challenges were innumerable. For example, the simplest question could be when we were doing the wine tasting at any of the premises, the simplest questions could be, how do we take it? With water, with ice, or just like that? Or a very standard Indian question, ASAP, like Adha soda, Adha pani. Anyway, but those were the days when how we started. And gradually we started explaining to them the difference between other alcoholic beverages and wine, how wine is made, how different varietals taste. It took a lot of time, but people who were experimental, they were willing to try it and occasionally switch over to the wine. That is how the gradual shift happened.
Okay. Did you ever think of at that point in time that what the wine market today is and what was there at that time, right? In '94. So you're talking about 30 years or more. Did you see that it will grow so much?
Actually speaking, at that time I did not visualize that it will grow to such an extent. But yes, it's a matter of satisfaction that from practically no market to where wine is a part of any kind of social gathering, you will find the wine there. Yes, that's a big achievement, and I'm very happy that wine is becoming socially acceptable. When I joined the industry, I joined as a participant, but I never realized that I'll become a contributor to it. But yes, it did happen, and I'm quite happy the way wine has grown, though there is a lot of more scope for it to grow.
So you talked about the challenge of the consumers not knowing about wine. So what was your one step that you tried to do to break that part?
One thing which we did very consciously was not to position the wine as a woman-centric. Because Indians have a mindset that if anything is meant for ladies, they will not touch it. So there was a lot of pressure on me also. Okay, there's a ready-made market, women would love it. But then I thought, and of course I discussed with my team also, that if we target it towards women, the men will never touch it again or rarely touch it. And the bigger market is the men, not the women. And we thought then we ourselves will be restricting the market if we make it gender-centric. So we consciously stayed away from making it a gender-centric market. Other challenges were, for example, the corkscrews were not. At that time, all the wine bottles used to come with the cork. The Selvin cap came much later. The corkscrews were not available. The proper wine glasses were not available. The wine coolers were not available. So those are all, in fact, corkscrew we had to import because the requirement was very small. So Indian vendors were not willing to make it also because of the high cost. So we had to import it. People going abroad, we used to tell them, okay, bring some corkscrews for us so that we could at least give it to discerning people, use it as a marketing tool, educate the people how. In fact, we had to tell them how to use a corkscrew also. So we have come from that stage where people are very comfortable handling a bottle of wine now.
Okay. Now, this was the consumer side of things, right? What about the retailers? Were they open to keep the Indian wines on shelf?
Actually, when I started doing the marketing, I went from shop to shop personally. I visited practically each and every wine shop in Bombay where I could feel that yes, the wine, they have a clientele where the wine could be sold. Of course, not to certain areas where we know that the wine can never be a product to be sold. Talk to them. They were always apprehensive. Like we will keep it as and when orders come, we'll buy it. We had to keep on convincing them that only when you keep it, make it available on the shelf. And we are doing the background promotion so the customers will come and ask for it. So there was a lot of convincing required with the shopkeepers also to stock it and showcase it and talk to the customer. So even talking to the shopkeepers also required education. How to sell the wine, what kind of wine to sell, like white or red, depending on what the customer is planning, what kind of food he is having, what kind of evening he is having. So it was a whole lot of education right from consumer to shopkeeper.
Did food play a role in this transition? The
food played a very important role, but not in terms of wine and food pairing. We consciously positioned our wine on, we gave it a very different positioning. For example, we associated with the luxury, we associated with the fine dining, we associated with the lifestyle experiences, travel abroad, those kind of things. So food did play a major role, but not the kind of food pairing which we see people talk about food pairing today.
Right.
Not that kind, definitely no. But we associated with the food festivals which were happening across the restaurant. So there we encourage people to taste the wine along with the food which they were having. So to that extent, yes, food did play a very major role.
Okay. A slightly more controversial question. Do Indians, or do we as a wine consuming community in India still feel that there is, the European wines or the American wines or the New Zealand wines or wines coming from abroad are, comparable to the Indian wines or not comparable to the Indian wines?
If you ask my personal question, and having spent so many years into the Indian wine industry and tasting various wines both in India and during my travel abroad, I think some of the Indian wines are definitely better than a few of the imported wines.
Okay.
And only thing is the pricing, maybe yes, a little more. Some of the very good Indian wines are a little more expensive, but there are people who are willing to pay. About imported wines, I'll say that all the wines are not necessarily good. They are better marketed.
Okay.
I'll put it bluntly like that.
That's a very interesting way to look at it. So, so are you hinting that Indian wines need to market better?
They need to change the marketing drastically.
Okay.
The kind of marketing which we started in '94 onwards, most unfortunately, the marketing has stayed at that level.
Okay.
They have not brought about a shift in the marketing style. The consumer profile has changed. The demographics have changed. There is a lot of much younger generation who are very socially active, who have traveled abroad. They have very good experience of their travel abroad. They are willing to experiment, but nobody is targeting them. We are the marketing setup of all the Indian wineries today. They are targeting the same set of consumers. Maybe they are consuming more and more wine. That is where the depth is not coming.
Okay.
So unless we increase the depth of the market in terms of consumer base, the market will have a slow growth.
So what is lacking?
If you ask me, if I can be very blunt to say that the wine has not failed, the marketing has failed.
Okay.
I'll put it very bluntly.
Okay.
Because see, what we started in '94, about 32 years ago, most of the companies are still doing the same thing. Whereas the dynamics have changed. There is no need to pair or give it a very elite status. Make it a common, affordable, social drink where people have conversations about the wine. It is still being positioned as a very elite drink or a special occasion drink, which is a barrier. What we started as our tool, because at that time we were establishing a market, we were establishing a product category. Today, wine is a product category separately in Alcobe, well recognized. So today there is no need to actually position it as an elitist. Today we should make it more simple, affordable, more accessible, more enjoyable. That is where I think the marketing needs to have a look at that.
Okay. So you spoke about, when you were doing the marketing and you were, trying to place your wines on the shelves of the retail shops. Is that a challenge still there, and is that stopping the growth of the wine industry? Or, it could, if I could rephrase the question, would the wine industry have grown faster if, the challenges which were there at that time were taken care of by now?
I'll say it that the marketing has created a barrier. The present set of marketing has created a barrier by positioning it as an elitist, special occasion drink, special food thing. So unless those barriers are removed, people, the younger generation does not need lectures about wine. They want to experience the wine. So make it more accessible. Talk to them about stories about the wine. Tell them different varietals without going too much into technicalities. It's a socially enjoyable drink. I'll take a very classic example. China, modern wine industry started almost on par with India, mid 80s or so. Today, China is the almost fifth largest producer and consumer of wine. Now, they don't eat European food, they don't eat cheese. Here, we are still hell-bent on or talking only about wine and cheese evenings, whereas cheese is not our staple food. So why should we keep on promoting wine and cheese? So that is giving it a positioning that only when you are having cheese, then you should have wine, or wine you should have only with the cheese. Why can't you have it with the Indian food? So that elitist status has to go. Chinese don't drink it, they don't eat European food too much like what we do here. They eat their normal Chinese homemade food, but yet they drink a lot of wine with that. So there's not too much of overthinking in China. That is what we should do that. Not too much overemphasis, not make it very complicated, make it simple, enjoyable, good social drink, and probably, in my opinion, healthier than other hard drinks.
So if you remember, sir, about a couple of years back, we did an event, we both of us together, and I think Atharva was there. We did an event where we paired the wines with Indian street food. So we had a sparkling Prosecco, I think.
Prosecco it
right?
was.
We had a Prosecco and we paired it with a batata vada.
Batata vada,
right?
Chole bhature.
Chole bhature,
Yeah.
and we had some this thing, I think keema pav also.
Keema
right?
pav.
So do you think communities like the caste circle or communities like smaller wine groups, etc., can help in promoting something like this?
See, I think the initiative which Caste Circle had taken to promote, to pair wines with the Indian food, street food, is commendable. Very few wineries have dared to do that because they are always trying to position it with cheese or European food or with pasta or pizza or other European food or French food. Now, and I'm sure you have noticed that how successful it was.
Yeah.
Everybody enjoyed both the food and the wine together. It was not that they were drinking wine as an aperitif and then having chole bhature or batata vada.
Correct.
They all enjoyed together. Only thing is what we paid attention was the pairing, that there should not be any too much of contrast between the wine and the food, like in terms of spiciness or in terms of oiliness. Once those things are taken care of, I think Indian food is very good compatible with wine.
Okay. There is still a belief, okay, which continues, I think, still, where most of Indian drinking is based on that you drink first, okay, and with the drink you only have your chakna, and then after the drink you have your dinner, right? I still see a lot of people doing that. But when you're drinking wine, right, wine you're having with food, is that again a challenge in the Indian scenario?
See, that is where the mindset needs to change. And that is where the companies like Winebro can play a very leading role. Say, you look at a typical scenario of a group of friends having a party at home. What will happen? The men will always sit in one corner, have drinks. The women could be gossiping or maybe having a beer or something, but they'll sit separately. Now, there's nothing wrong in that because it's a social gathering. But if you look at the scenario where everybody is sitting together and having a glass of wine along with the food, so everybody is sharing the whole experience together. That is where companies like Winebro will play a leading role to develop a community, or that you enjoy it together. Wine is not something to be had only for drinking. It's enjoyment, it's experience, it's talking with each other, talking about the wine. And that inhibition of talking about wine, there's nothing right or wrong about the wine. It's your preference, it's your choice. So I think it should become a social point that yes, we are serving wine along with the food, whatever food you are serving.
Excellent. I think that's possibly the game changer is what I see in the...
It will remove that mindset that wine has to be had only with special food, special occasions. So that mindset has to change.
Okay. Coming back now to the industry again. What are the wineries or are the the people around the wine industry. Are the challenges same that were there when you were heading it, or have they changed?
Challenges are more or less same uh, in terms of one mindset, and there are bigger challenges like in terms of supply chain, taxation, availability, proper storage conditions, proper taxation, proper transportation conditions, and movement state to state. So those are the big challenges which still exist. I'll put it this way that the challenges are both supply as well as demand challenge, both at the same time, which is very rare.
But you use the word taxation, you use the word, moving, transporting wines from one state to the other. So, what are the challenges there? What are the, a few examples, if you could give me that? What is troubling the industry over there?
See, the biggest drawback, hindering and expensive when in terms of taxation is not only the direct tax, excise duty or so. It is, for example, label registration, because the producer has to register the label in each state. That is very expensive. And for small wineries, it becomes prohibitively expensive to register their labels in all the states. And then transportation. For transportation, you need maybe multiple permissions to transport the stocks from, not within Maharashtra, but say from, for example, from Maharashtra to Delhi or Maharashtra to Karnataka, interstate. And then the trucks, they are not air conditioned. They move at this kind of a temperature where the road temperature could be 40 degrees or so. So, and then when it goes to the warehouses are not air conditioned. The shops, very few shops are now which are modern large format shops. Yes, they are air conditioned, but most of the shops you find even in Bombay today, they are not air conditioned. So they store the wine just like they store beer and whiskey. So those are the challenges which industry is facing.
So, do you think the government should play a role to reform these things, or do you think it's an impossible thing to do?
I think the government should, all the governments together, because it's a collective thing. It's not only Maharashtra government which can take an initiative, or Karnataka or the Delhi state government. I think at the central level, they should convene a meeting of all the concerned authorities, make transportation, make movement much more easier, less expensive, and rationalize the label registration expenses. Because small wineries, then they cannot showcase their products outside their home state. For example, there are a lot of wineries in Karnataka. We are making good wines, but they cannot register the label in Maharashtra or Delhi because of the prohibitive costs. Similarly, in Maharashtra, there are, I think, 50 or 60 wineries, but just 4 or 5 are available outside Maharashtra. So they are not able to showcase their wine. They are not able to sell. So that is not creating a wider base among the consumers. They are not getting enough choice. So I think it depends on the food processing ministry, to convene a meeting of all the concerned authorities, those who are controlling the transportation and taxation, to make it much more easier. I know it's a difficult task, but then unless the association, the industry association, forcibly puts up this demand, talks to them to rationalize, make it simplified, things can be done.
Okay. So, again, you again said that it is not so simple, correct? Why is it not so simple? Is it because the states are challenging it, or whether the central government is not willing to do it, or is there a revenue profit challenge? What is the challenge?
I'll put it this way. There are two things. One, alcohol, whether it's wine or any other alcohol, it's a state subject under the constitution.
Correct.
So center has a very limited role to play, except for imported, like they are empowered to put custom duty. After that, they have no control over state taxation.
Correct.
So center has a limited role in terms of bringing parity on the wine in terms of taxation. But the label registration in some of the states is prohibitive. To take an example, in one of the southern states, the label registration per label, and I'm talking of per label, for example, white and red wine will be 2 labels. it's about 2 lakhs rupees per label.
Wow.
So small wineries cannot afford that. Even for big wineries, it's a capital expenditure, and it's every year. It's not that you pay one time and then okay, you are done with it. It's every year renewal, and then renewal itself takes a lot of time. It normally takes anywhere from 1 month to 2 months to renew the label year after year. So there's a time lag. By that time your labels are renewed, you cannot send the stocks to that state. So that is where I think states should take an initiative to rationalize at least this part of label registration, make it uniform, or as far as possible, bring in uniformity, low label registration. That will give a lot of relief to small wineries. They can sell their product, they can showcase their product outside their home state.
So the wineries, which when you started off, right, there at that point in time, it's a complete change in subject, but at that point in time, most of it was, red wine, sparkling, right? Now, when you go to a shelf, you see a rosé, you see multiple reds which are there, you see multiple whites which are there. People are starting to understand the grape varietals which are being created. So the wine industry per se has grown from what time you were there and what it is right now. Has the quality also improved?
I'll answer your question in two parts. First part I'll put slightly colloquially. Indage was incidentally the first company to introduce rosé wine.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I was there at that
I
time.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we brought that wine to the wine shop, their question was, क्या इसमें कलर क्यों फीका पड़ गया? The ignorance was to that level. They could not understand that rosé is a separate category in itself in the wine. Compared to that, today, I think particularly rosé wine is highly suitable for Indian wine. That is where the exposure has helped. A lot of wineries then put together. Now almost every winery has a rosé wine, which is doing very well, and it's very suitable for Indian color. Plus, the importers have also played a very important role in introducing new varietals, wines from new regions they are introducing to India. So today the consumer has a very wider choice, wider experience, and they are comfortable with that. So it's those kind of questions which we were facing in 94, 96, 97, 98. The vendor or even the hotel staff does not have to face those kind of questions. People know if they're asking a rosé wine, they know what a rosé wine is or what a prosecco is and what is a sparkling wine.
Correct. So उतना knowledge तो आ ही गया.
Yes, that has all the wineries put together have, for example, Indian wineries also. A lot of them have introduced international varietals. Now it is not limited to just white and red.
Yeah.
It is limited to large number of international varietals have been introduced. Which I think the credit must go to all the wineries put together, Indian wineries.
Correct. Another controversial, since you mentioned this particular point, a lot of our wineries are concentrated around the Nasik area. Some of them in Bangalore and that area. Do you think these are the only two areas which are able to produce the right kind of grapes for the right kind of wines which we have? Is that putting some kind of a constraint on the winemaking?
You see, no country in the world, wine producing countries I'm talking, has survived on having only one or two regions. They all have multiple regions. And each region has its own specialty. Okay. Now, I'm not a viticulturalist, so I cannot comment authoritatively on that. But my personal belief is that grapes are grown everywhere in the country. They may not be like Cabernet Sauvignon being grown in Telangana or Chardonnay being grown in Tamil Nadu, but they do grow local grapes. And today, our winemaking techniques, our winemakers have that kind of exposure possibly to make good drinkable wine out of that, which could be cheaper. It could provide different alternatives made from the local grapes, local people consuming. So that will add to the depth of the market in terms of number of regions producing local wines. I personally don't feel there's anything wrong in that. Why should we stick only to international varietals?
Correct.
Whereas, for example, Italy itself has got about more than 300 varietals. Though by name, by international known, there are only 15 or 20, but they have got almost 300 varietals. France has got more than 100 varietals. Now, they call it, because they have grown vineyards for centuries together. So they call it that they are grapes suitable for making the wine. We can also start somewhere. We can also start making wine from these, not table grapes exactly, but grapes grown in these kind of regions with special care, which are suitable for that climate, that region, and suitable for being converted into good drinkable wine. So that is how we grow more regions. That's what I feel. That should be done so that there is a diversity, there is a value addition in the whole chain, and people get to taste different wines.
Staying on the same subject of the regions, since there are not so many regions in India which are, grape growing, a lot of wineries have moved to fruit wines, right? Like we have mango wines, we have pomegranate wines, we have strawberry wines, we have mulberry, raspberry, apple, and so many different. Do you think India can create a category out of fruit wines for itself and for the international market? Do you think that's a possibility?
See, fruit wine as a category has grown all over the world.
Okay.
It's not only restricted to India. But in India, unfortunately, what is happening is all the fruit wines makers, producers, they are trying to compete with the grape wines instead of creating a separate market, because it's a different product.
Correct.
It's not the same product. So don't try to, for example, if you're having a mango wine, mango or any kind of fruit, you don't eat along with the food. You eat it after the food or before the food. You take fruit as a fruit. So position the fruit wines differently. So create your own category. Today, what is happening? They are trying to compete with the grape wine, positioning along with the same kind of food instead of creating a category. So the industry is cannibalizing itself. So that is where I think the fruit industry needs to look at. For example, recently I was in Shimla. You will not believe, every road has got about 15 to 20 wine shops made wine from the local fruits. Okay. All and is being supported by the government tremendously. They are very popular, not only among the local people, even the tourists also. They buy the bottle, they drink it, they enjoy it, and they don't pair it. Even the shopkeepers will also tell you, "Ke sahab, this wine you don't need to pair with any food. Just enjoy it as it is." So the shopkeepers are also educating the customers, but unfortunately, that is not percolating here. That's why I feel, yes, fruit wines has a market. It's a different product altogether in the wine category, but its positioning should be different.
Okay. So what you're saying is that we should not compare the two
with
wines,
the fruit wine in terms of food pairing. Have it either an aperitif or as after food drink. That's what I do, and I believe I do that, and I believe in that.
Okay. But like I said, do you find it as a market in India? Because we do not have enough grapes, regions in India, or we've not yet explored more regions in India. So what would you tell the wine industry, that explore more wine regions in India, or go the fruit wine way and create a separate product for that?
See, when we are talking of wine regions, we are not. I'm not restricting myself to only grape wine.
Yeah.
When I'm saying develop different regions, for example, India is one of the largest horticulture producers in the world.
Correct.
So there is no reason why whatever is the fruit in Himachal, for example, they have taken, is a fruit basket of India. And they are converting all the fruits into the wine. Arunachal has started with the kiwi wine. So whatever are the local grape fruits are there. So that itself will give you different regions, different wines altogether. Okay. Not necessarily that everybody has to make wine from grape. If they can make it, good. If they cannot make it for agriculture, for climatic reasons or the soil reason, but they do have local fruits, convert that into local and market it well. So and that will bring diversity to the whole industry. That will create a volume in itself. People will start drinking possibly fruit wines gradually, once the mindset has changed that wine is a good drink, they'll shift over to grape juice. So it will add to the whole market.
When I'm talking to you, most of the discussion revolves around the mindset and the marketing part of wines. Uh, in the marketing, again, is there something that the government can do in improving the marketing for the wineries or the distilleries?
See, Maharashtra government has played a very limited role in creating a separate license for wine and beer shopping in terms of making it available. But I think the government should go a step beyond that. Maybe set up their own marketing, for example, like Himachal government has done. Set up their own shops or create a separate authority which will market these kind of wines aggressively. Of course, yeah, there are a lot of politics may be involved in it, but then for the larger community of the consumers and for the grape growers and fruit growers, government should take a very pragmatic view, come out openly that we are trying to support the viticulture, we are trying to give better alternatives to the consumer so that they shrink away from, especially it is a younger generation. They don't get hooked into the hard liquor, so they gradually shift into, because hard liquor has its own social perils, whereas liquor is more enjoyable, wine is more enjoyable, more social. So it will overall help in the social growth of the country also. So government, at least Maharashtra government, having taken one step of allowing wine and beer shopping, go further and do some kind of very active marketing.
What do you think? What are your views on the MML that has been introduced some time back?
See, on the face of it, people are afraid that it will bring in imported wines at a much cheaper rate. I'll put it this way. One, it's a long-term contract. The wines are not coming immediately. It's to be implemented over a period of time, phase-wise. And second, then they have put a barrier that wines only above certain price will attract lower duty. I think in case of Australia, it is 10 Australian dollars per bottle, which will attract a lower level of duty. That is, I think, good, because then the wines which are sold at above 10 Australian dollars in Australia, they can bring it for comparative consumption. So that will give an incentive for Indian wineries to improve their quality to bring up at that level. So I think it will help in improving, continue to help in improving the quality of Indian wines. There is nothing wrong in that. After all, we cannot remain in isolation. When all industry in India is becoming global, we can't just separate out grape industry to be in isolation or protect it indefinitely. It needs to compete globally.
Okay. So now that we've analyzed most of the areas, the government participation or the retail side of things, the wineries themselves doing a lot. What do you think is the future of wines in India? That was a big pause.
Looking at what it was in mid-90s and today, I think the future is good.
Okay.
The only thing is slow growth and the younger generation not being targeted. We targeted consciously I'm talking about mid-90s, people who have foreign exposure, have a lifestyle experiences, good disposable income. Now, same criteria can now be applied to the people who are in the age group of 25 to 45. They are also well experienced. They have a good global experience. They have a lifestyle, and they are fashion conscious. They are health conscious. So target them. That will expand the base and add to the depth of the market and increase the volumes. That is where I think the whole effort of marketing should be, to target people in the IT industry, banking, insurance, ITES, all these industries which attract people in the age group of 25 to 45 or so. That is where the volumes lie.
One important question, which I think is very key when I see wineries outside India. It's the winery itself which gets converted into wine tourism, right? Where people visit over a weekend, and they go there, spend a day over there, have the wines there, have food there, and come back. Uh, do you think that is happening in India?
See, wine tourism, it plays a very important role in two different levels. Abroad, if you see, the wine tourism is to experience different brands because the people are already consuming the wine. For example, I had extensive wine tourism in Australia. Now, it's a wine consuming country. You go to France, you go to California, people are consuming France, Italy. The people are already consuming wines. But when it comes to wine tourism, it is more of an exposure to different products which may not be available locally. So they experience different product, different labels, different wines. But in India, wine tourism is happening. It's a very big thing to happen, and it is encouraging people to go to the wineries, participate in see the whole winemaking process, understand how wines are different from other liquor, and create a connect. That is where the wine tourism plays a very important role. It creates a direct connect between the consumer and the product. And fortunately, if you see, the wine tourism is happening mainly among this age group which I am talking about.
Okay.
But that needs to expand further. Yeah, it does play a very important role. And one important thing in wine tourism which India should do and which is happening abroad. For example, I experienced in Australia, I saw it in Italy, California. Wine, whenever they are offering the wine you to taste, they don't talk about the specifications of the, they do talk about, but emphasis is not on the characteristics of the wine or on the intricacies of that particular product. There's a story behind the wine. They talk more about how the label was created, how their 10th generation planted the vineyards here. So they create a story, and that story stays there. That is where we are lacking. We are just talking very roughly about the characteristics of the wine. It's like educating in a classroom. Now, younger generation does not need lectures. They need experience. They need connectivity. And connectivity should come from storytelling. Storytelling is the best way to create brand awareness, create loyalty, and create curiosity, and curiosity into buying. So there should be more emphasis on the storytelling than just you go to the winery, sit in the wine tasting room and talk about blandly about this taste, this color, this, that. People forget about that very easily. So it's a very important role to play, but the style should change slightly.
I've been I've been thinking about wine marketing in India and wine tourism. So there are a few places in Nasik I know where they already do something like that. There's a family which runs a wine place with a pizza, with a coffee place, and tiramisu and stuff like that. The culture of cafes which has grown right now. So every 100 meters you find a cafe which is selling some sort of a unique coffee roasted in a certain manner and made in a certain manner, and every coffee differs at every coffee shop. The coffee changes, right? Some people like X kind of coffee and some people like X. Do you think wine cafes like this, or these specifically experience centers which are selling wine by the glass, which do storytelling, can help or will add to the wine tourism scenario?
I think that will play a very important role because then, say, when you're doing wine tourism, going to a winery, along the way, or after reaching there, after experiencing the wine of that winery where you're visiting, you explore other, go to other market. If the wine cafes are allowed to be open, for unfortunately it is not allowed, like it's licensing and all that. They can sell the wine bottled, but you're not allowed to consume it, you're not allowed to taste it. If that, when we come back to the same, what government can do is be a little more pragmatic, allow tasting in a wine shop so people get to see. wine ultimately is an agriculture product. The taste will differ from what vegetable is grown or agriculture produces here or what is produced in Bombay.
Exactly.
It will have a different taste.
Exactly.
That is what the people should experience. For example, the winery which you mentioned about the pizza and all that, I have visited that winery number of times. For me, that is the most favorite destination. If it comes, it's not the greatness of the wine; it is the whole ambience, the roughness, the casual approach. The whole family is talking to you like you are a family person, and they make very basic wine. But you are not going there to drink wine. You are not going there to eat pizza. You are going there for the atmosphere, for the experience. That is what all the wineries should do instead of having very elaborate boardroom kind of a wine tasting where you have maybe, for example, 3 white and 3 red. I can guarantee you, after finishing the 3 wine, all that one person could say, the first one was better. They will not say, what was the first one? They will not be able to name it. So when you, within 2 hours, you are not able to name what was the wine which you tasted, the first one. You only say first was good, second was slightly better. You don't talk about their varietal. Yeah. So that's not an experience. Experience is where people should remember. So there should not be too much of technicalities. It should be comfortable, enjoyable, experiencing. That's where this winery excels.
Yeah, I think that that is a very key thing. Again, keeping in mind, or coming back to a little bit on the future kind of thing, we have the newer generation. I've been reading quite a bit about it, and it's moving towards 0% alcohol. Is a lot of people talking about. A lot of people saying that. They're moving towards more premiumization. They're moving towards more, experiential drinking rather than drinking to get drunk types. So, would wine find a fit in that particular culture?
See, wine is not a drink to be had in a hurry, like any other alcoholic beverage. It is to be enjoyed sip by sip over a conversation. It is something to enjoy over a conversation. You create a connect with the wine. You can make a connect with the group you are drinking with. So it's more about the conversation, not just to have a drink. That's how I come back to because it has again connotation with the marketing. That is how the marketing should evolve. Create a different atmosphere. Don't talk too much of technicalities. Let people enjoy whatever they are drinking. So only thing is, they should try different things so that they don't get stuck only on one. They should experience different wines.
Yeah, I think that's where everybody is moving to right now. After COVID, that's what I have realized also, that a lot of people want to experience newer things. They do not want to keep doing the same thing again and again and in a repeated manner. They want to try out a lot of newer things in newer areas. It could be, drinking good wine, understanding good wine, going to Himachal specifically to have fruit wine there, or going to Nasik and visiting a Sula to understand, the vineyards over there, Shandon over there. And so I think experiential drinking is what I would say, or what I would look at as the future or the near future, which may just enhance the way we are selling wines.
The kind of work which Venpro is doing, for example, the ghazal evenings, or karaoke evenings. We have simple food. People are coming not only to have the liquor, they are coming for the full package. Their wines are always very much appreciable. People sit down, listen, participate in the ghazals, or anybody goes to the stage and sings karaoke, and others are having. You are not emphasizing on the wine and food pairing. You are not making it complicated. You are making it a good evening, enjoyable evening. Wine is a part of it.
Correct.
So the whole emphasis is on enjoyment. Not on having too much of technicalities. Oh, it's a dry, it has got this flavor, it has got that flavor. Forget about it. That way, the wine will go nowhere. Best thing is, make it simple, enjoyable. There are 5 wines, drink whatever you want. and pay attention to what is happening on the stage.
So that's why we called it Thodi Wine, Thoda Gyan.
Yeah.
That's what we are trying to do. So I'll just go to a rapid fire kind of a thing with you.
Let me get ready for that.
So, what is the one Indian wine which you would recommend?
I'll put it this way, the one which you enjoy and you're not told to enjoy.
I like that.
And another thing, wine is like a girlfriend. To name one, I'll be offending so many others.
That's a good one. That's a nice way to put it. Old world or new world?
Old is tradition, new is experiment. Both are needed.
I'll go back to a very basic thing. Red or white?
Depends on the mood, timing, possibly my spending at that time, the reason why I'm drinking. So no rules, based on purely on my mood, weather, and the time of the drinking.
What is the most underrated grape varietal according to you?
In Indian context, Chenin Blanc. It's very versatile, very suitable for Indian palate, very suitable practically with all Indian food. So I think Chenin Blanc is a very underrated grape.
I kind of agree to that completely, because I think Chenin Blanc can be the wine
grape of India.
The grape of India. One myth about the wines which you wish Indians would stop believing.
That wine is complicated. That's one myth they should all remove from their mind, that it's a complicated, it's only for special occasions, it's only for special food. It can be a very good everyday drink. Just enter it.
So I want to ask you one interesting question, and I find it interesting because I am the spirit side of things. India has majorly been a whiskey drinking country. How do you answer the wine versus whiskey debate?
Actually, that was one of the questions we used to face while doing the marketing in the initial days. People would come and say it does not give a kick, because India people are used to drinking only for the kick. Actually, wine is not for immediate effect. Wine is more enjoyable, more social. You experience the wine. You experience the wine over conversation. I'll put it in one-liner that whiskey is by habit, wine is by choice. It's up to you.
Sahi hai. Last, we've discussed this before, but I just want a yes and no from you. So, wine with Indian food.
Yes, big in capital. Only thing is, we should choose wisely. For example, if you're having dal chawal, you can't have wine with that. There's too much of liquid in your mouth. So choose wisely. Indian food, very good with wine. Choose wisely, but no taboos on that. Taking example of China, why can't India?
So on the closing notes, I see you at this age also very excited about wines. You've been selling wine since 94. So almost 35, 40 years into wine industry. What keeps the excitement on?
I'm happy that you're feeling excited without having a glass of wine in front of you. I can imagine what will happen when you actually have a glass of wine. See, I started the journey. For me, it's the wine is not for effect. For me, every varietal, every evening, every conversation is different. I enjoy every part of it. For me, it's a journey, and I'm enjoying every step, every sip of it. That's what keeps me motivated.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for your
thank you.
The kind of experience that you have shared with us, and every time I talk to you, I find newer things. I find newer ways of looking at wine. So thank you.
It's always a pleasure to talk with you, to participate in your events. It's a game changer. It's a mind changer. That yes, the things can be done the way you are doing it. Thank you. But thank you for inviting me.
Thank you
so much.
And thank you for being our first guest on the podcast that we have
Thank
started.
you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to us. This was our first podcast. It was our guest was Hans Raj sir, who's been a mentor and a veteran in the wine industry. I'm so glad that he was able to come with us and share his experiences with us on this. Stay tuned for more such podcasts about the alcobev industry. Thank you for being there.